While we were fishing, my son shoved me off the boat and said, "Say hello to the sharks." He swam away and left me in the ocean, 10 miles from land. He thought that was the end of the story. It wasn't. It was the beginning of mine. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The water was cold. Not freezing, but cold enough to remind me I was 62 years old and not as invincible as I used to be. My boots filled immediately, dragging me down. I kicked them off, watching them spiral into the darkness below. The boat's engine roared to life. I watched my son, my only child, the boy I raised alone after his mother passed, open the throttle and disappear toward the horizon. No hesitation, no looking back, just gone. I treaded water, forcing myself to breathe steady. Panic uses oxygen. Panic makes you stupid. The Marines taught me that 35 years ago, and the lesson stuck. I scanned the horizon. Nothing but rolling waves and afternoon sun beating down on my head. 10 miles from shore. Maybe more. I should have been terrified. I should have been screaming, thrashing, begging God for a miracle. Instead, I was thinking about how calm he'd been, how he'd suggested the fishing trip 3 days ago, casual, like it was nothing, how he'd picked this specific spot, far from the usual routes, how he'd brought 2 life vests but only wore 1, how he'd positioned himself behind me when I was checking the line. This wasn't rage. This wasn't a fight that went too far. This was planned. I floated on my back, conserving energy. The sun was maybe 3 hours from setting. If I was still out here when it got dark, I was finished. The Coast Guard wouldn't know to look for me. Nobody knew we were out here. That was the point, wasn't it? I heard an engine. Not the same boat. Something bigger. I turned in the water, squinting. A fishing trawler, maybe half a mile out, moving parallel to my position. I waved both arms, shouting, knowing it was useless at this distance. The boat kept going. Then it turned. It took 10 minutes for it to reach me. By then, my shoulders were screaming and my legs felt like concrete. A rope ladder dropped over the side. I grabbed it and pulled myself up, hand over hand, until strong arms hauled me onto the deck. I lay there gasping, water pouring off me. A shadow fell over my face. "Jackie?" I blinked salt out of my eyes. Hook Grayson stood over me, 64 years old and built like a brick shed. We'd served together in the Corps, survived 2 deployments, kept in touch ever since. He lived up the coast, ran a charter fishing business. His face was sunburned and concerned. "What the hell are you doing out here?" he asked. I coughed up seawater, rolled onto my side. "Fishing trip went bad." "Where's your boat?" "Gone." "Your son was with you, right? Where's he?" I looked up at Hook. He'd known my son since the kid was 5, taught him to tie knots, took him fishing, showed him how to clean a catch. He was practically an uncle. "He left me," I said. Hook's expression didn't change. He just stared at me, waiting for the punchline. "He pushed me off the boat and left me out here." Hook crouched down. "Say that again." "You heard me. Jackie, I know what it is." Hook stood up fast, scanning the horizon like he might still catch sight of the boat. "We need to call the Coast Guard, the police. That's attempted." "No." "What do you mean, no?" I sat up, ignoring the way my body protested. "Help me get home first, then we'll figure it out." Hook stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had, but I knew one thing for certain. If I called the police right now, if I made this official, my son would have time to prepare. Time to spin a story, hire lawyers, play the victim. And juries love a grieving son more than they love an angry father. "Jackie." "Hook, please." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Your call, brother." It took 40 minutes to reach the marina. Hook grabbed a blanket from below deck, and I wrapped it around my shoulders, shivering despite the heat. We didn't talk. Hook kept checking his phone, probably wondering if he should call someone anyway. I stared at the water and thought about my son's face in that last moment before he pushed me. Calm, focused, resolved, like he was taking out the trash. Hook dropped me off at my truck. I'd driven here this morning, parked in the lot, walked down to meet my son at the dock. That felt like a year ago. You going home? Hook asked. Yeah. Want me to come with you? No. Jackie, if he's there. He won't be. Not yet. He thinks I'm feeding the sharks right now. He'll take his time getting back. Hook's jaw tightened. This is insane. Probably. At least let me give you my spare GoPro. I want to know if anything happens. He reached into his glove box and pulled out a small camera. It's got a full charge. Keep it on you. I took it. Thanks, Hook. Call me tonight, I mean it. If I don't hear from you by midnight, I'm calling the cops myself. Fair enough. I drove home with the heater on full blast, still shivering. My house sat on 3 acres outside of town, private road, nearest neighbor half a mile away. I'd bought it after my wife passed, wanted space, wanted quiet. Now that privacy felt like a trap. I parked in the garage and walked through the mudroom into the kitchen. Everything looked normal, clean counters, empty sink. The coffee maker I'd used this morning still sitting there, a half-inch of cold coffee in the pot. I walked through the house, checking each room. Nothing disturbed, no signs of forced entry or hurried packing. My son didn't live here anymore. He'd moved to the city 2 years ago, got himself a condo near his office. But he still had a key. He still came back sometimes. I went to my office, a converted bedroom at the back of the house. My desk sat against the window, filing cabinets along one wall, gun safe in the corner. I opened the top desk drawer. Empty. Not just empty, cleaned out. The folder that held my will, my insurance policies, my bank statements. Gone. The spare checkbook I kept for emergencies. Gone. Even the USB drive where I backed up important documents. Gone. I opened the filing cabinet. Half the folders were missing. Mortgage papers, investment records, my discharge papers from the Marines. He'd been here, recently. Maybe this morning while I was waiting at the dock. I sat down at my computer and opened my email, logged into my bank account. Everything still worked. Nothing seemed touched. But as I scrolled through my recent transactions, something caught my eye. A transfer request, initiated yesterday. $10,000 from my savings to an account I didn't recognize. Status, pending approval. I grabbed my phone and called the bank. Got transferred 3 times before reaching someone who could actually help. Mr. Riker, yes, we have your transfer request here. It requires your verbal confirmation to complete. I didn't request any transfer. Pause. Sir, the request came from your email address. Someone hacked my email. I see. In that case, we'll flag this as fraudulent and... Wait, don't cancel it yet. Just put a hold on it. I need to check something first. I hung up and opened my email settings, logged into the activity history. Someone had accessed my account from a different IP address. Yesterday afternoon, same time my son suggested we go fishing. I sat back in my chair staring at the screen. He'd planned this. Every piece of it. The fishing trip, the timing, the location. He'd already started moving my money. He'd already taken my documents. He was setting up to erase me from my own life, claim everything I owned, and make it look legitimate. And he would have gotten away with it. If Hook hadn't been on the water, if the wind had been blowing a different direction, if I'd panicked and drowned. My phone buzzed. Text message, unknown number. Dad, there's been an accident. The boat took on water. I made it back, but I can't find you. Please call me if you get this. I stared at the message. He was already building his alibi. Panicked son, tragic accident, devastated by the loss of his father. I deleted the message. Then I walked to the bathroom, stripped off my damp clothes, and stood under a hot shower until my skin turned red. My body ached, my shoulders burned. My lungs felt raw from the salt water. But my mind was clear. My son had tried to erase me, tried to shove me off the board like I was nothing. Like 30 years of raising him, feeding him, teaching him, protecting him. Like all of that meant nothing. He wanted me gone, so I'd disappear. For a little while, just long enough to watch him, to learn what he'd been planning, to understand exactly what I was dealing with. And then I'd come back. I got dressed in dry clothes, grabbed a duffel bag, threw in some basics. I took the GoPro Hook gave me and set it on the kitchen counter, checking the charge. Full battery. I turned it on, tested the recording. Everything worked. Then I grabbed my keys and drove to a motel 20 miles outside of town. Paid cash, didn't use my credit card, didn't call anyone. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited. At 8 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Another text from my son. Dad, I filed a missing persons report. The Coast Guard is searching. Please, if you're out there, just call me. I turned off my phone. Then I lay back on the scratchy motel bedspread and smiled. He thought he'd won. He had no idea the game had just started. I woke up at 6 a.m. from years of military habit. The motel room smelled like old cigarettes and industrial cleaner. I showered, scrubbing the last traces of ocean salt from my skin, then dressed in dark jeans and a black jacket. Hook called at 6:30. I'd turned my phone back on, set it to silent. 2 missed calls from my son. 7 texts, each one sounding more desperate than the last. Jackie, tell me you're alive, Hook said when I answered, still breathing. Where are you? Better if you don't know yet. The hell does that mean? It means if anyone asks, you rescued me, dropped me at the marina, and haven't heard from me since. You're worried. You filed a report with the Coast Guard. You did everything right. Silence on the other end. Then, you're planning something. I'm planning to not be an idiot. What do you need? Information. Can you find out what my son's been doing the last 6 months? Business deals, money problems, anything that might explain why he suddenly decided to erase his father? I'll ask around. Got a buddy who works in commercial real estate, another one in banking. Give me a day or two. Thanks, Hook. I hung up and drove back toward town, parking 2 blocks from my house. I walked the rest of the way, cutting through the woods behind my property. The morning was cool, mist hanging in the trees. I crouched behind a cluster of pine trees with a clear view of my driveway. At 7:15, my son's car pulled up, a silver Audi, leased, expensive. He climbed out wearing slacks and a button-down shirt like he was heading to the office. He walked to the front door, used his key, went inside. I waited. 20 minutes later, he emerged carrying a cardboard box. He put it in his trunk, went back inside, came out with another box. 3 trips total. More documents. More pieces of my life he was quietly stealing. He locked the house and drove away. I waited 10 minutes, then let myself in. The office was torn apart, every drawer open, files scattered on the floor. I checked the gun's safe. Still locked. He hadn't gotten into that, at least. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table. My son had eaten breakfast here 1,000 times, done homework, brought girlfriends home for dinner. I'd taught him to change a tire in the driveway, taught him to shoot in the back field, and he'd pushed me off a boat without a second thought. I went back to my office and started digging on my computer. My son worked for a commercial development company, mid-level management, decent salary. I pulled up his social media. LinkedIn showed a polished professional profile, recent posts about successful projects, new contracts. Everything looked normal, too normal. I found his company's public filings. Revenue was down, way down. 2 major projects had fallen through in the last year. My son's name appeared in a local business journal article from 3 months ago. The headline, Local Developer Faces Scrutiny Over Failed Mall Renovation. I read it twice. My son had led a project to renovate an old shopping mall. He'd promised investors a 20% return. The project collapsed after 6 months, leaving investors angry and threatening legal action. The article mentioned debt, significant debt, personally guaranteed by the project manager. My son. My phone buzzed. Text from Hook. Found something. Call me. I called. Hook answered on the first ring. Your son's in trouble, he said. Deep trouble. My buddy in banking says he's got 3 personal loans totaling $200,000, all taken out in the last 8 months, all coming due in the next 60 days. Jesus. It gets worse. He's got credit card debt, car payments on that fancy Audi, mortgage on his condo. My buddy says he's about 2 months away from defaulting on everything. $200,000. My son needed $200,000, and I had about that much in savings and investments. There's more, Hook said. My real estate guy says your son's been asking around about properties, specifically your property. Wants to know what it's worth, if it could be subdivided, how fast it could sell. My house. He wanted my house. He's going to wait until you're declared legally gone, Hook continued. Then he'll file to claim your estate, sell everything, use the money to cover his debts. How long before I'm declared legally gone? After a missing persons case? Could be months, could be years. But if there's evidence you drowned at sea, if there's no body, if there's no reason to think you're still alive, maybe 6 months. Maybe less if he pushes hard enough with good lawyers. I sat there, processing. My son hadn't just tried to end me. He'd tried to erase me and profit from it, turn my life into cash, pay off his debts, move on like I'd never existed. Hook, I need you to do something for me. Name it. You recorded the rescue yesterday, right? On your boat cameras? Pause. Yeah. Standard procedure. I've got a GoPro mounted on the cabin that runs whenever we're out on the water. Does it show me in the water? Show you pulling me up? Jackie, does it? Yes. I need that footage. Don't delete it. Don't tell anyone about it. Just keep it safe. What are you planning? I'm planning to make sure my son doesn't get away with this. The police won't do anything. He'll say it was an accident. He'll cry in front of a jury and they'll believe him. And even if they don't, what's the worst that happens? Attempted manslaughter? He'll get probation, maybe a year in minimum security. Then he'll go right back to selling my house and spending my money. So what's the alternative? I don't need him in prison. I need him destroyed. Hook was quiet for a long moment. You're going to go scorched earth on this. Yes. What do you need? Time, information, and someone who knows how to apply legal pressure. I know a lawyer, Claire Weston, corporate litigation. She's good, and she hates liars. Set up a meeting. Jackie, are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I hung up and walked to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, same face I'd seen for 62 years, but something in the eyes had changed. I spoke to my reflection. You pushed the wrong Marine, son. I spent the next 2 days invisible, stayed at the motel, paid cash for everything, kept my phone off except for brief check-ins with Hook. I watched the news. My son had gone public with his grief. Local station ran a story about a missing fisherman, beloved father, tragic accident at sea. My son gave an interview, eyes red, voice shaking. He was my best friend, he said to the camera. I just want him to come home. I watched it twice, studied his face, the micro-expressions, the way his hands moved. I'd spent 30 years reading body language, enemy combatants, suspects at the firing range who shouldn't have guns, teenagers lying about where they'd been. My son was good, but not good enough. His left eye twitched when he said, best friend. His hand went to his collar when he said, come home. Classic tells. He was performing. Hook called on day 3. I've got someone you need to meet, he said. Claire Weston, she's a lawyer. Corporate litigation, she's good and she hates liars. Why would she help me? Because I told her the story and she got angry. Real angry. You free this afternoon? I met them at a diner 30 miles from town. Claire Weston was 50-something, short gray hair, sharp eyes behind wire-frame glasses. She ordered black coffee and got straight to business. Hook showed me the footage, she said. Your son pushed you. Clear as day. That's attempted manslaughter at minimum. I'm not interested in pressing charges. Why not? Because he'll hire lawyers, drag it out for years, and even if I win, he'll serve minimal time. Meanwhile, my life is still disrupted, my reputation is still damaged, and he still gets to play the victim. Claire studied me. So what do you want? I want to dismantle his life the same way he tried to dismantle mine. Legally. Systematically. Completely. That's going to require leverage. I have leverage. I have footage of him pushing me off the boat. I have evidence of attempted fraud. He tried to transfer money from my accounts, stole my documents, started liquidating my assets. And according to Hook, he's drowning in debt. Claire leaned back. The debt is the key. If he's personally liable for failed projects, if he's got loans coming due, if his investors are already angry, we can apply pressure, make his situation worse, force him into positions where he has to make desperate choices. What kind of choices? The kind that expose him. See, right now he's probably scrambling, trying to hold everything together, trying to keep his creditors calm while he waits for you to be declared legally gone so he can access your estate. But if we accelerate the pressure, if we make his creditors demand immediate payment, if we alert his investors to his financial situation, if we make sure everyone knows what kind of person he really is, he'll panic. And when people panic, they make mistakes. I want him ruined, I said. Not just embarrassed, not just in debt. I want his entire life collapsed. Claire smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. Then we're going to get along just fine. She pulled out a legal pad. First, we need to document everything. The footage from Hook's camera, that's gold. We'll keep it private for now, use it strategically. Second, we need to file fraud reports with your bank, your insurance company, anywhere he tried to access your assets. Third, we look into his business dealings. If he's committed fraud there, if he's misled investors or falsified documents, we report it. Fourth, we go after his reputation. Quietly at first. Let word spread that he's not reliable, not trustworthy. Make people nervous about doing business with him. How long will this take? Depends how hard we push. Could be weeks, could be months. I want him broken before he gets a chance to declare me gone. Claire nodded. Then we move fast. I gave her everything. Bank statements, emails, transaction records. She photographed Hook's footage frame by frame, capturing the moment my son's hands hit my back, the moment I went over the rail, the moment he turned the boat away. This is damning, she said, but we're going to hold on to it. Use it at exactly the right moment for maximum impact. When's that? When he thinks he's safe, when he thinks he's gotten away with it, when he's surrounded by people whose opinions matter, investors, colleagues, maybe even media. We show this when the fall will hurt the most. Over the next week, Claire went to work. She filed fraud alerts with my bank, triggering an investigation into the attempted transfers. She contacted my insurance company, flagging suspicious activity. She reached out to the business journal that had written about my son's failed project, asking pointed questions about his financial disclosures. Hook kept tabs on my son's movements. The kid was spiraling. His car was parked at his office until midnight most nights. He'd stopped posting on social media. He'd canceled meetings. He knows something's wrong, Hook reported. He can feel it. He just doesn't know what yet. Good, I said. Claire called on day 12. We've got a problem. Or an opportunity, depending how you look at it. What? Your son's company is hosting an investor event next week. Big presentation. They're trying to drum up funding for a new project. Your son is the lead presenter. So every major investor who got burned on his last project will be there. Every banker he owes money to will be watching. It's the perfect stage. For what? Claire's voice was cold. For showing them exactly who they're dealing with. The investor event was held at a downtown hotel, ballroom rented out, catered lunch, projection screens showing glossy renderings of the new development project. I watched from across the street, sitting in my truck with tinted windows, baseball cap pulled low. My son arrived early, stepping out of his Audi in a tailored suit. He looked thinner, tired. He stood outside the hotel for a moment, checking his phone, then walked inside. Claire had done her homework. She'd identified every investor attending, every banker, every business reporter. She'd created anonymous email accounts, prepared the footage, written a detailed summary of my son's financial situation and his attempt to claim my estate while I was still alive. "The email goes out at noon," she told me over the phone. "Right in the middle of his presentation. Everyone will get it simultaneously. Investors, banks, media. By the time he finishes talking, his entire audience will know what he tried to do to you. Will they believe it?" The footage doesn't lie. And I've included documentation, bank records showing the attempted fraud, statements from your insurance company, affidavits from Hook confirming the rescue. It's airtight. I checked my watch. 11:30. I got out of my truck and walked into a coffee shop with a clear view of the hotel entrance. Ordered an espresso. Sat by the window. At 11:55, my phone buzzed. Text from Claire. "Email scheduled. 5 minutes." I sipped my coffee and waited. At noon exactly, I saw the first reaction. A man in a suit walking out of the hotel, phone pressed to his ear, face flushed. Then another. Then a woman, reading something on her tablet, stopping mid-stride. My phone buzzed again. Claire. "It's spreading, already picked up by 3 business blogs." 2 minutes later, a news van pulled up outside the hotel. I finished my coffee and walked back to my truck. Drove to a parking garage 4 blocks away, where I could still see the hotel entrance but wouldn't be noticed. The exodus started around 12:30. Investors leaving early, faces grim. A cluster of men in suits arguing on the sidewalk. News crews setting up cameras. At 1 p.m., my son emerged. He wasn't alone. 2 older men flanked him, clearly executives from his company. They were talking fast, gesturing. My son's face was pale. One of the executives pointed back at the hotel, said something sharp. My son shook his head. They stood there arguing for 5 minutes. Then the executives walked away, leaving my son alone on the sidewalk. He pulled out his phone, stared at it. His hands were shaking. Hook called. "Jackie, it's everywhere. Local news, business sites, social media. Somebody leaked the footage. It's trending." "Good. Your son's company just released a statement. They're suspending him pending an internal investigation." "Even better. Jackie, he's finished. His career, his reputation, all of it. He's done." "Not yet," I said. "Not until he's lost everything." That evening, Claire sent me a summary. 3 investors had filed complaints. 2 banks had frozen accounts pending fraud investigations. The local prosecutor's office had opened an inquiry. My son's company had officially placed him on administrative leave. "His assets are frozen," Claire reported. "Bank accounts, investment portfolios, everything. He can't access any of it while the investigations are ongoing." "How long will that take?" "Weeks, maybe months. And even if he's cleared, the damage is done. No investor will touch him. No bank will loan to him. He's toxic." I sat in my motel room watching the news coverage on my laptop. They showed the footage, again and again. My son's hands hitting my back, my body going over the rail, the boat pulling away. The anchor called it shocking, called my son callous. Interviewed a legal expert who said attempted manslaughter charges were likely. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was my son. His voice was ragged. "Dad, I know you're alive. I know you're doing this. Please, we need to talk. I can explain everything. Just, please call me back." I deleted the message. The next morning, Hook called again. "Your son's at his condo. Been there all night. His car hasn't moved. Keep watching." "Jackie, what's the end game here? He's already ruined." "Not ruined enough. What else is there? I want him to feel what I felt. Helpless, abandoned, watching everything he built slip away. He's your son. He stopped being my son when he pushed me off that boat. Hook was quiet. Then, what do you need from me? Stay close. When he moves, I want to know. Over the next 3 days, my son's world continued to collapse. His condo was posted for sale, forced liquidation to cover debts. His car was repossessed. His face appeared on news sites with headlines like, "Developer accused of fraud," and "Son allegedly attempted to end father's life for inheritance." Claire kept me updated on the legal proceedings. "The prosecutor wants to meet with you. They're building a case." "Not yet. Jackie, if you don't cooperate, they might drop it." "They won't. The evidence is too solid. Let them build the case without me. I'll show up when I'm ready." On day 4, Hook called. "He's on the move, heading out of the city." "Where?" "Give me a minute." Pause. "Looks like he's heading toward your place." I smiled. "Perfect. You want me to come?" "No, I've got this." I drove back to my house for the first time in 2 weeks, parked in the garage, walked through the quiet rooms. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. I went to my office, sat at my desk, and waited. At 4 p.m., I heard a car in the driveway, footsteps on the porch, a key in the lock. The front door opened. My son walked in. He was a mess, stubble on his face, rumpled clothing, and tired, reddened eyes. He walked through the house calling my name. "Dad? Dad? I know you're here. Your truck's in the garage." I stayed silent. He moved through the living room, checked the kitchen, headed down the hallway toward the bedrooms. I heard him opening doors, his voice getting more desperate. "Dad, please, we need to talk. I can fix this." He reached my office, stood in the doorway, saw me sitting at the desk. We stared at each other. "You're alive," he said finally. "Disappointed?" He stepped into the room. "Dad, Stop." He froze. "You pushed me off a boat," I said quietly. "You tried to steal my money, my house, my life. You filed fraudulent transfers. You took my documents. You planned this for weeks." "I can explain." "No, you can listen." I stood up. My son took a step back. "I spent 2 weeks watching you," I continued. "Watched you give interviews about your missing father. Watched you cry for the cameras. Watched you try to hold your life together while everything collapsed. You want to know why it's collapsing? Because I'm making it collapse. Every investor who pulled out. Every bank that froze your accounts. Every news story that destroyed your reputation. That was me." His face went white. "Why?" "Because you tried to erase me. I was desperate. I owed money. I had debts. I needed—" "So you decided to end your father? That was your solution?" "I wasn't thinking clearly." "You were thinking plenty clearly. You planned every detail. You picked the location. You stole my documents first. You already had the transfer requests ready. You knew exactly what you were doing." He started to cry. Real tears this time, not the performance he'd given the news cameras. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I messed up. I know I—" "You messed up?" I laughed, harsh. "You tried to delete me from existence and you think that's a mess up?" "Please, Dad. I'll make it right. I'll confess. I'll go to the police. Whatever you want. What I want is for you to feel what I felt, floating in the ocean, watching you leave, realizing my own son cared more about money than about me." "That's not true." "Then why'd you do it?" He couldn't answer. I walked past him, heading for the kitchen. He followed. "Dad, wait. Listen to me. The debts, the pressure, I was losing everything. I thought if I could just access your accounts, if I could sell the house, I could fix it. I could pay everyone back. Start over." Start over without a father. I don't know what I thought. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was just trying to survive. By ending me. It was supposed to look like an accident. You weren't supposed to suffer. I turned on him. That's supposed to make it better? That you plan to erase me cleanly? He backed up against the counter. What do you want from me? I want you to understand something. You don't get to cry. You don't get to apologize. You don't get to make this about your debts or your pressure or your desperate situation. You made a choice. You chose money over your father, and now you get to live with that choice. Are you going to press charges? The prosecutor's already building a case, with or without me. But you could stop it. You could tell them it was a misunderstanding. Why would I do that? Because I'm your son. You stopped being my son when you pushed me off that boat. He slid down the counter, sitting on the floor. So what now? You're just going to let me go to prison? Prison would be easy. Prison is 3 meals a day, a bed, maybe a few years. Then you get out and start over somewhere else. No. What's going to happen is you're going to stay free and watch everything you built turn to ash. Your career, your reputation, your relationships. Every person who ever trusted you will know what you tried to do. Every future employer will find the news stories. Every future partner will see the footage. You won't be able to hide from this. It'll follow you forever. That's worse than prison. Exactly. He looked up at me, tears streaming. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. Now. I walked back toward my office. He called after me. Dad, please, don't leave me like this. I stopped, turned around. You left me in the ocean, 10 miles from shore, to drown, so don't talk to me about being left. I went into my office and closed the door. Listened to him sobbing in the kitchen. After a while, I heard him stand up, walk through the house, and leave. His car started. Drove away. I sat at my desk and exhaled. Hook called 5 minutes later. You okay? Yeah. What happened? He showed up. We talked. He left. That's it? That's it. Jackie, you know the prosecutor's going to want a statement eventually. I'll give them one, when I'm ready. And your son? He'll figure it out. Or he won't. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. I hung up and looked around my office. My house, my life. Everything my son had tried to take. It was still mine. 3 days later, I got a call from a detective. Professional voice, matter-of-fact tone. Mr. Riker, I'm Detective Hayes with the County Prosecutor's Office. We'd like to speak with you about the incident involving your son. I figured you would. Can you come in tomorrow? 10 a.m.? I'll be there. I showed up 15 minutes early. The prosecutor's office was downtown, 3rd floor of a concrete building that looked like it was built in the 70s. Detective Hayes met me in the lobby, mid-40s, graying hair, tired eyes. Thanks for coming in, he said, shaking my hand. I know this must be difficult. Not as difficult as drowning. He led me to a small conference room. Another detective was there, younger, female, holding a tablet. They introduced her as Detective Morgan. We've reviewed the footage, Hayes said, sitting down. We've spoken with Hook Grayson. We've examined the financial records. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Riker. This is one of the clearest cases I've seen in 20 years. Your son attempted to end your life for financial gain. That's attempted manslaughter at minimum. Could argue for attempted first degree, given the planning involved. What do you need from me? Your statement, on record. We need you to walk us through what happened. I told them everything. The fishing trip, the push, the swim, Hook's rescue, coming home to find my documents stolen, the attempted fraud, my son's debt, the whole story. They recorded it, asked clarifying questions, took notes. When I finished, Hayes leaned back in his chair. This goes to trial. You know he'll try to make you look like the bad guy. He'll say you were abusive, that he was scared, that it was self-defense. Let him try. You seem calm about this. I am calm. Most people in your situation would be angry, hurt, demanding justice. I got my justice. Hayes raised an eyebrow. How's that? His life is ruined. His career is over. Everyone knows what he did. He'll carry this for the rest of his life. That's better than a prison sentence. Detective Morgan spoke up. You know some people are saying you set him up, that you deliberately exposed him, humiliated him, destroyed his reputation, that you went beyond self-defense into revenge. Is revenge illegal? Depends on the methods. I didn't touch him. I didn't threaten him. I didn't do anything except expose the truth. He tried to steal from me, and I reported the fraud. He tried to claim my estate, and I made sure people knew I was alive. He gave interviews lying about what happened, and I released footage showing the truth. Nothing I did was illegal. Hayes smiled slightly. You're a smart man, Mr. Riker. I'm a Marine. We plan ahead. They finished the interview and told me they'd be in touch. I drove home, stopped at the grocery store for the first time in weeks, bought real food instead of gas station sandwiches. I was loading bags into my truck when I saw him. My son. Standing next to a beat-up Honda, watching me. He looked even worse than before. He'd lost weight. His clothes hung off him. He had the look of someone who hadn't slept in days. I closed my truck bed and walked over. You following me now? I asked. I need to talk to you. We talked. I need help. That's not my problem. Dad, please. I lost my condo. I lost my car. I'm staying on a friend's couch. I can't find work. Nobody will hire me. I have nothing. Good. He grabbed my arm. You can't just leave me like this. I looked down at his hand on my arm. He let go immediately. I didn't leave you like anything, I said quietly. You did this to yourself. I made a mistake. You tried to end me. I know I did, and I'm sorry. How many times do I have to say it? There's no number of times that makes this okay. Then what? You're just going to watch me suffer forever? I'm not watching you do anything. I'm living my life. You're not part of it anymore. I'm your son. Not anymore. I started to walk away. He called after me. I'll testify. I'll tell them it was my fault. I'll take whatever punishment they give me. I stopped, turned around. You think that changes anything? It's what you want, isn't it? Justice? I already got justice. The question is, what do you want? He stared at me. I want my father back. You gave up that right when you pushed me off the boat. People make mistakes. People make mistakes. You tried to delete me from existence. There's a difference. I got in my truck and drove away. Watched him in my rearview mirror, standing there in the parking lot, alone. Claire called that afternoon. The prosecutor's moving forward. They're charging your son with attempted manslaughter, fraud, and a few other things. Could be looking at 15 years. He won't get 15. Probably not. But even with a plea deal, he's looking at time, unless you intervene. I won't. I have to ask. What's the end goal here? What's enough? I thought about that. When he understands what he did. When he truly gets it. Not just sorry because he got caught. Not just sorry because his life fell apart. Sorry because he actually comprehends what he tried to do to me. That might never happen. Then he'll never be enough. I spent the next few weeks getting my life back. Changed my locks. Updated my passwords. Moved money into new accounts. Filed paperwork to revoke my son's power of attorney, remove him from my will, eliminate any legal connection between us. Hook came by one evening with beers. We sat on my back porch, watching the sun set over the trees. How you holding up? He asked. Better than expected. You hear your son's trying to get a plea deal? Claire mentioned it. Says he'll plead guilty to fraud and attempted assault if they drop the manslaughter charge. Could be out in 3 years. Good for him. Hook was quiet for a moment. Jackie, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Do you feel guilty? At all? For what? For destroying him. He's your kid. You raised him. I raised someone. I don't know who that person on the boat was. You really think he's that different from the boy you knew? The boy I knew wouldn't have pushed me into the ocean. Hook nodded slowly. Fair enough. We drank our beers in silence. After a while, Hook said, You know, I've been thinking, what if he'd succeeded? What if I hadn't been out there that day? You were. But if I wasn't? If you'd drowned, he'd have gotten away with it. Yeah. That doesn't bother you? It did. For a while. But then I realized I didn't drown. I survived. And that meant I got to decide what happened next. That's worth something. Is it enough? I looked at my friend. It has to be. The trial date was set for 2 months out. My son's lawyer reached out through Claire, asking if I'd be willing to meet. Family mediation, they called it. A chance to resolve things privately. Absolutely not, I told Claire. I figured, but I had to ask. What's his angle? He wants you to agree to a lighter sentence in exchange for a public apology and restitution. He pays you back, admits fault, serves minimal time. Tell them no. You sure? The prosecutor says with your cooperation, they could probably get him 5 years minimum. Without you pushing for harsh sentencing, might be closer to 3. I'm not pushing for anything. I'm telling the truth and letting the court decide. All right. But Jackie, you should know. His lawyer's going to try to paint you as vindictive. Say you orchestrated his downfall out of spite, not self-defense. Let them try. The day before trial prep, my son showed up at my house again. I was in the garage, organizing my tools, when I heard footsteps behind me. You need to stop showing up here, I said without turning around. This is the last time. I turned. He looked slightly better. Clean clothes, shaved, haircut. Someone had gotten to him. Probably his lawyer, told him he needed to look presentable for court. Your lawyer know you're here? I asked. No. Then you're stupider than I thought. I'm not here to beg. I'm here to tell you something. Make it fast. He took a breath. You were right. About everything. I was selfish. I was desperate. I convinced myself that stealing from you was somehow justified because I needed it more. Because you were older and I had my whole life ahead of me. Because I thought you'd forgive me eventually, even if you found out. I waited. But pushing you off that boat, he continued, that wasn't desperation. That was something else. That was me deciding your life mattered less than my comfort. And I can't take it back. I can't undo it. I can't make it right. No, you can't. So I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to help me. I'm just saying you were right to do what you did. I deserved all of it. Good. Now leave. Dad, I'm not your dad anymore. We established that. He nodded slowly. Yeah, we did. He walked away. I heard his car start, drive off. I went back to organizing my tools. Claire called an hour later. Your son just accepted a plea deal. 5 years. He'll serve minimum 3 with good behavior. Without my input? He told the judge he didn't want to put you through a trial. Said he was pleading guilty to spare you the trauma. Playing the noble son card? Probably. Judge seemed moved by it. But it doesn't matter. He's still going away. 3 years. Maybe 5. Then he'd be out, trying to rebuild. Or not. Either way, it wasn't my concern. The sentencing hearing was the following week. I showed up, sat in the back of the courtroom. My son stood before the judge in a suit that was too big for him now. His lawyer spoke about remorse, about rehabilitation, about how my son had accepted responsibility. The judge asked if I wanted to make a statement. I stood up. Every head in the courtroom turned. No, Your Honor, I have nothing to add. The judge sentenced him to 5 years, eligible for parole in 3. My son didn't look back as they led him away. Hook was waiting outside the courthouse. How do you feel? Relieved. That's it? What else should I feel? I don't know. Closure. I got closure when I walked out of that ocean alive. We walked to our trucks. Hook stopped me before I climbed in. Jackie, for what it's worth, you did the right thing. Which part? All of it. Surviving, exposing him, letting the system handle it. You could have ended this a dozen different ways, and you picked the one that kept you clean. I'm a Marine. We follow rules. Even when the rules screwed you over? Especially then. I drove home, stopped at the range where I taught firearms and airsoft courses. My boss, an ex-Army guy named Mitchell, waved me over. "Heard the sentencing went through," he said. "Yeah? You coming back to work? If you'll have me." "Course I will. You're the best instructor I've got. Besides, students keep asking when you'll be back. Something about the crazy Marine who survived being thrown off a boat." I smiled. "Tell them Monday." "You got it." I spent that weekend cleaning my house. Deep cleaning, the kind you do when you're starting fresh. I threw out old files, shredded documents I didn't need, organized everything that mattered. I changed the locks on the doors again, just to be sure. I deleted my son's number from my phone. Sunday night, I sat on my back porch with a beer and watched the stars. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Mr. Riker?" A woman's voice. "This is Officer Patterson with the county jail. Your son asked me to pass along a message." "I'm not interested." "He said to tell you he understands now, that he gets it, and that he's sorry." "Is that all?" "He also said thank you." I frowned. "Thank you for what?" "He didn't say, just asked me to tell you that." I hung up without responding. "Thank you. For what? For exposing him? For ruining his life? For not testifying against him even though I could have?" I didn't know, and I didn't care. I finished my beer and went inside, locked the doors, set the alarm, went to bed in my own house, in my own bed, safe and alive. And that was enough. Life returned to something close to normal. I went back to work at the range, teaching firearms safety and running airsoft scenarios. The students treated me with a mix of respect and curiosity. Nobody asked directly about what happened, but I could see the questions in their eyes. Mitchell pulled me aside after my first week back. "You're handling this well." "Handling what?" "Being the guy who got thrown off a boat by his son. That's not something people forget." "Good. Let them remember. Maybe it'll remind them to be careful who they trust." "That's a dark way to look at it." "It's a realistic way." Hook stopped by the range one afternoon, watched me run a group through a hostage simulation. Afterward, we grabbed coffee from the vending machine. "You seem different," he said. "Different how?" "Harder, colder. Maybe I am." "That bother you?" "No." Hook studied me. "Jackie, I've known you for 40 years. You've always been tough, but you were never cold. You cared about people. You helped people. You gave a reckless kid a second chance and raised him alone after your wife passed. That was you. The guy I'm looking at now, I'm not sure who this is. This is who survives when his son tries to erase him. Your son's in prison. You won. Isn't that enough?" "I didn't win anything. I just didn't lose." "That's the same thing." "No, it's not." Hook shook his head. "You're going to drive yourself crazy thinking like that." "Maybe, or maybe I'm finally seeing things clearly." A month passed, then another. I got a letter from my son. Prison mail, passed through inspection, stamped and dated. I almost threw it away without reading it. Instead, I opened it. "Dad, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I don't have the right to write to you, but I need you to know something. I've had a lot of time to think in here. About what I did, about who I became, about why I thought it was okay to prioritize money over your life. I don't have a good answer. I was drowning financially and I panicked. But that's not an excuse. Plenty of people face debt without trying to hurt their parents. The truth is, I'd stopped seeing you as a person. You became an obstacle. Something in my way. And that's the worst part. Not that I tried to push you off a boat, but that I'd already pushed you out of my heart long before that day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to visit or write back. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What I took from you wasn't just money or property. It was trust, safety, the belief that your family wouldn't hurt you. And I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, not because I'm in prison, but because I genuinely understand what I did to you. Thank you for not lying at my sentencing. Thank you for letting the system work. Thank you for being a better man than I deserved. I hope you're okay. Your son. I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in a drawer. Claire called later that week. Your son's lawyer reached out. He's doing well in prison. Model prisoner, taking classes, participating in therapy. Thought you'd want to know. I didn't ask. I know, but I'm telling you anyway. Why? Because whether you like it or not, he's still your son, and maybe someday that'll matter to you again. It won't. Okay. But after she hung up, I found myself thinking about it. Thinking about the kid I'd raised. The boy who used to follow me around the house, asking questions about everything. The teenager who got in fights defending his friends. The young man who called me every Sunday after he moved out. Where did that person go? When did he become someone who could push me off a boat? I didn't have answers. Maybe there weren't any. 3 months after the sentencing, I was at the grocery store again, same place where my son had confronted me that one time. I was loading groceries into my truck when a woman approached me. You're Jack Riker, right? I turned. She was maybe 40, professional clothes, kind face. Yeah. I'm Emily Chen. I work at the Business Journal. I covered your son's case. I'm not interested in an interview. That's not why I'm here. I just wanted to say thank you. I frowned. For what? For going public with what happened. My brother was in business with your son. Lost a lot of money when that mall project collapsed. We thought my brother was just unlucky, that it was a bad investment. But after your story came out, after people started digging into your son's business practices, we found out he'd been lying to investors for months, falsifying reports, hiding debts. My brother's filing a lawsuit now. He might actually get some money back. Because of you. I didn't know what to say. I know this probably doesn't help, she continued. I know what your son did to you is unforgivable. But I wanted you to know that exposing him helped other people too. You weren't just protecting yourself. You were protecting all of us. She walked away before I could respond. I stood there for a moment, grocery bags in hand, processing. Other people, other victims. I hadn't thought about that. I'd been so focused on my own revenge, my own justice, that I hadn't considered who else my son might have hurt. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I searched my son's name online. Pages of results, news articles about the trial, but also forum posts, review sites, complaint boards. Dozens of people talking about business deals gone wrong, investors who lost money, contractors who never got paid. Small businesses my son had promised partnerships to, then abandoned. He'd hurt a lot of people, and they'd all stayed quiet until I came forward. By exposing him, I'd given them permission to speak up. I closed my laptop and sat back. Maybe Hook was right. Maybe I had changed. But maybe that wasn't entirely bad. I wasn't the same man who'd gone fishing that day. That man had trusted blindly. Believed family loyalty was automatic. Thought the worst thing people could do was let you down. This version of me knew better. Knew that trust had to be earned, not assumed. Knew that sometimes the people closest to you could hurt you the worst. Knew that survival meant being harder, colder, more careful. But I also knew how to fight back. How to stand up when someone tried to erase me. How to turn weakness into strength. And that was worth something. 6 months after the sentencing, I got another letter from my son. This one was shorter. Dad, I'm up for a review hearing next month. My lawyer says with good behavior, I might qualify for early release in 18 months instead of 3 years. I'm not writing to ask for your support. I'm writing to let you know that if they release me early, I'll stay away from you. I won't contact you. I won't show up at your house. I won't try to rebuild something that can't be rebuilt. I just wanted you to know that I understand boundaries now. I hope you're well. I didn't respond. The review hearing happened without me. I didn't attend, didn't write a letter, didn't offer an opinion. Claire called afterward. They approved him for early release. He'll be out in 18 months with an ankle monitor and strict probation terms. Fine. You okay with that? It doesn't matter if I'm okay with it. It's done. Jackie, Claire, I appreciate everything you did for me, but I'm done thinking about this. I'm done planning around it. He's in prison. He'll get out eventually. I'll deal with it if he becomes a problem again. Until then, I'm moving on. All right. But if you need anything, I know where to find you. I focused on work, picked up extra classes at the range, started teaching advanced tactical courses, trained security personnel, law enforcement, military contractors. Word spread that I was good, calm, under pressure, methodical, experienced. People came from 3 counties over to train with me. Mitchell offered me a partnership in the business. You're bringing in more students than anyone else. Seems fair you get a piece of the revenue. I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's business. You make me money, you get a cut. That's how this works. I accepted. Became part owner of a firearms training facility. Started building something that was mine, that nobody could take away. Hook noticed the change. You're settling in. Yeah. Good. You deserve some peace. Do I? What kind of question is that? I destroyed my son's life. Systematically. Deliberately. Some people would say that makes me worse than him. Hook shook his head. Those people are idiots. He tried to end you. You just made sure everyone knew the truth. That's not revenge. That's justice. Feels like revenge. Good. Maybe revenge and justice are the same thing sometimes. I thought about that. Maybe he was right. Maybe the difference between revenge and justice was just perspective. Either way, I'd done what I needed to do, and I'd sleep fine at night. A year passed, then another 6 months. My son's release date approached. Claire called to give me a heads up. He's getting out next week, Friday afternoon. His probation officer says he's required to stay at least 50 miles away from you for the next 2 years. Good. He also has to attend therapy, keep a steady job, and agree to random screenings. If he breaks any of the terms, he goes back to serve the rest of his time. I don't care what his conditions are. As long as he stays away from me, we're fine. Understood. Friday came. I went to work like normal, ran classes, cleaned equipment, locked up at 6 p.m. and drove home. My house was quiet, secure, mine. I made dinner, watched the news, went to bed. Somewhere, my son was walking out of prison, starting over, trying to rebuild a life from ashes. That was his problem. I had my own life to live. 2 years passed without incident. I never saw my son, never heard from him. He stayed away, just like he'd promised. I heard things through the grapevine. Hook's network was good for that. My son was working construction, living in a cheap apartment, keeping his head down, no social media presence, no attempts to re-enter his old industry, just quiet survival. Good. The business grew. Mitchell and I expanded, added a second building, hired 3 more instructors. We started running weekend workshops for civilians interested in self-defense. The classes filled up fast. One Saturday, a woman in her 50s approached me after a basic firearms course. Mr. Riker, can I ask you something? Sure. Your son, the one who, you know. What about him? Do you ever think about forgiving him? I looked at her. Why would I? Because holding on to anger eats you alive. I know. My ex-husband did something similar, tried to ruin me financially, turn our kids against me. I spent years hating him. It didn't hurt him. It only hurt me. I'm not holding on to anger. I'm holding on to clarity. What does that mean? It means I learned something valuable. I learned that trust isn't automatic, that people will hurt you if it benefits them. That family doesn't mean loyalty. Those are good lessons. I'm not angry. I'm just informed. She nodded slowly. That's a sad way to live. Maybe, but I'm still living. She left. I went back to work. Hook caught me at the end of the day. You hear about your son? No, and I don't want to. He got engaged. I stopped. What? Met someone at his construction job. They're getting married next month. Small ceremony. Just family and close friends. Good for him. You're not curious? About what? About who she is, whether she knows what he did, whether he's changed. It doesn't matter. Jackie, Hook, I appreciate you keeping tabs, but I don't need updates on his life. He's not my concern anymore. He's still your son. No. He's a stranger who used to be my son. Hook sighed. You're the most stubborn man I've ever met. That's why I survived. A month later, I was home when someone knocked on my door. I checked the peephole. My son stood on the porch. He'd gained weight, looked healthier. He was wearing clean work clothes, boots caked with dried mud. His hair was longer. He looked nervous. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. You're violating your probation, I said. You're supposed to stay 50 miles away. Probation ended last month. Then you're just violating common sense. I know, but I needed to see you, one last time. Why? Because I'm getting married. And before I start that new chapter, I needed to close this one. It's already closed. Not for me. We stood there staring at each other. He looked older, tired, but also more settled, like he'd finally stopped running. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, he said. I know I don't deserve it. I'm just here to tell you that I've spent 3 years thinking about what I did, and I understand now. Not just that it was wrong, but why it was wrong. I took your life and tried to make it mine. And I'm sorry. You already apologized, in letters, multiple times. I know, but I needed to say it to your face. Fine, you said it, now leave. Dad, don't call me that. He flinched. Right, sorry, Mr. Riker. I just want you to know that I'm different now. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm just telling you, the person who pushed you off that boat doesn't exist anymore. Good. Then we have nothing to discuss. I started to close the door. He put his hand up, stopping it. Wait. There's something else. Something you should know. What? The woman I'm marrying. She lost her father 3 years ago. Car accident. She talks about him all the time, about how much she misses him, about how she wishes he could be at the wedding. And every time she does, I think about you, about what I took from you, and it makes me sick. Then don't marry her. No, that's the point. I'm marrying her because she makes me want to be better. She makes me want to be the kind of person who deserves a family. And I'll never have that with you. But maybe I can have it with her. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, I hope you're right. I hope you've changed. I hope you build a good life with her, but it won't be my life. And she won't be my daughter-in-law. You gave up that right. I know. Then why are you here? He pulled an envelope from his pocket. Because I wanted to give you this. I took it. What is it? Restitution. Every dollar I tried to steal from you, plus interest. It took 3 years of construction work, but I paid it back. I opened the envelope. A cashier's check, made out to me. For the exact amount he'd tried to transfer, plus 7% annual interest. I don't want your money, I said. I know, but it's yours. It was always yours. I'm just returning it. He stepped back off the porch. That's all I came to say. I won't bother you again. He walked to his truck. I stood in the doorway, holding the check. He drove away. I went back inside, sat at my kitchen table, stared at the check. Part of me wanted to tear it up, throw it away, refuse anything from him. But another part of me knew what this was. It was closure, real closure, not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just the final settling of accounts. I deposited the check the next day, put the money in a separate account, donated half to a veterans charity, used the other half to upgrade equipment at the range. His money would help train people to protect themselves, to fight back, to survive. That felt right.